Good morning, everyone. Well, that was a fantastic beginning to the day, Dominic.
I freestyled it.
Yes, so what I'd like to do to start off is to have the other panelists, Junichi and Chris, give a little background on what their interests are, their company does. So Junichi, could you
Yes.
start?
Thank you, Joe, and thank you very much for inviting me to such a wonderful panel with Edith, Joe, Chris, and Tom. Thank you very much. I must say thank you all the staff for one chance for us. I'm afraid all of us, all of you are not familiar with the Colo company. Actually, a company started just January this year. So let me introduce briefly Colo. What is Colo doing and who are we? Okay. Okay, Colo in Hawaiian means change or bind. So we major activity is to bind people to people, to bind technology to technology, to bind technology to people together, to bring the benefit to them, to create better world. We major focus on IoT edge computing with AI software, produce big data, and exchange on blockchain. Our concern is how can we make new market, P2P data exchange market, for example, by which IoT edge computer provide and distributed on the blockchain. We always think it's essential to take market-driven approach. So we always ask, hey customer, what kind of data do you want in blockchain? What if we could provide data produced by IoT edge computing and distribute them on blockchain? What happened? You take an action when you find the valuable data on blockchain? Do you have a benefit? Actually, we are lucky to win the third prize of One City Global Blockchain Challenge and to have a chance to introduce a proposal on Demo Day, September 14th. We proposed building of a EV battery renewal value prediction system, which creating sharing market based on battery lifecycle data. It's a very unique idea to provide the EV battery residual value data, which means how long the battery can provide electric power to EV and how much, by analyzing and estimating a smart edge computer, including intelligent AI engine. It provides not only current status of health of battery, but also for future status of health of battery. Anyway, why we propose IoT edge solution? I'd like to ask you, hey customer, do you want sensing data which gather from sensor? There are a very huge amount of data, and you cannot tell what does it mean. The data gathered from various sensors such as battery management system and onboard diagnostics on the AV are very huge, and those data acquired in a very high frequency for every second. If you send those data to blockchain, data traffic is very heavy and the communication cost is extraordinarily expensive. We propose whatever data which is to use the big data exchange it in the marketplace should be uploaded to blockchain. Basic analysis done by local edge computer, and the only analyzed result is sent to blockchain, such as state of battery health. For this way, we can reduce data traffic and communication cost. Okay, what if you could provide the data produced by IoT edge computing and distribute them on blockchain? What happened? Suppose they happen to come up with a new platformer which could provide new offering analyzing these big data on blockchain. They may provide some financial service both battery owner to the users. I believe the idea will be able to expand the future P2P energy trading market. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Junichi. The cost of transactions certainly a huge concern for everybody. My comments yesterday, I mentioned how whenever the transaction cost rate takes a large dip, usually innovation explodes. Dominic, you had some great comments about how the architecture really affects how that transaction costs is determined. Chris, can you tell us about what you're doing and maybe related to some of those issues that were brought up by Junichi and Dominic?
Right, so sort of my background or the background of my company is in open source Ethereum development. We started with the Python Ethereum implementation, and then we developed some other projects, contributed to some open source projects like Trust Network, Raid Network, and sort of our approach is to develop this protocol layer first, and then go to some sort of companies and let them develop products on top of it. And I guess that's where you come in, right? And we really focus right now on this IoT scenario because that is where Ethereum and these open source protocols really can develop the next level. And that is where you need scalability and security and this kind of features, right? So yeah, I guess that's what we're really dependent on the business implementations. Yeah, help from the consumers, end consumers.
So one of the topics that was discussed a bit yesterday was, what's going to be the big application that's going to break this whole area of blockchain technology, or in the case of your technology, Dominic, anti-chain, anti-block technology. Some of the opinions was it was a technology problem. I don't actually believe that's the case. I think in many cases when you're trying to build a complex systems, people and organizations have more to do with it than just the technology. You may have to continue to develop the technology, that's normal, but I just want to see, what is the passion that the panelists have to make this change? And do you think it's technology? Or do you think it's people, bureaucracy, regulation, standards? What is it that's has to change to make a breakout here? Dominic?
Yeah, so my opinion is definitely a mix of technology problems and also like people problems, adoption problems. Because so starting with the technology problems, like obviously at the end of the day we want adoption. We want people to use the technology. And back in 2015 we simply realized, hey, like every blockchain that is out there today is not scalable, it has transaction fees, and is not able to run in this Ethernet of Things environment where you have those resource constricted machines, right? And as such we went on this quest to actually like solve a technology problem. But I definitely agree that also when it comes to adoption, the thing about this blockchain space is right now it's still a lot of experimentation. Nobody really knows like, hey, what is the killer application? What is the mainstream application? And the thing is, this is largely influenced also by those regulatory and legal issues. Like nobody has thought about like, hey, if a machine has a wallet, does that even work? Like can it work legally? Because now it's its own economic and autonomous agent, right? So we still have to develop like a legal framework around all of these questions. But I do think that all of that stuff can be solved within the next 2 to 5 years. But so what really drives us is really this question, like how do we make machines their own autonomous and economic agents? Because like I mentioned before, we want to build this machine economy, where it's no longer humans who are like in the process involved, but it's purely machine to machine. And that really drives us to be the backbone of this machine economy.
Chris, what do you want to add to that? Do you think it's technology driven or a combination of all the other factors that we've talked about?
Yeah, I agree with Dominic, and I think the big problems we have today, they are created by society and larger companies. There's like big visions of machines talking to each other, of cars which don't stop in traffic jams because they can communicate basically. And there's big problems because there's no global IoT platform. There's like Fisker, there's a Tesla, and there's a BMW, and they don't want to talk to each other. So
the solution has to come sort of from a more open protocol side, I think. And, right.
Yeah, can I touch upon that? So the biggest problem that we have to solve is how do we get all of the corporates to adopt a permissionless system? Because at the end of the day, we really want to drive this permissionless innovation where it's not just large corporates that can participate in this machine economy, but where I, with my Raspberry Pi, can participate and like connect their HDD and self-storage. And I think that is a very, very difficult problem to solve because as an example, when it comes to EV charging station, EV charging, we have 5 different standards for the EV plugs. Now think about the future where we have 5 different blockchain protocols utilized for machine-to-machine payments. What this means now is that a machine first has to figure out like, hey, can I even pay the other machine? And that's a very difficult situation now because now we don't have a machine economy, we have a fragmented economy. And I think driving this adoption forward to one standard is going to be one of the major difficulties that we also face.
So one of the things that I've noticed over the 30 plus years of been at GE is a great idea is not enough to make it a reality. You need passion in the people that are trying to promote that idea. I feel a lot of passion up here on the stage, but I don't know exactly where it's directed. So I'm going to ask people, if you're willing, to tell me and the audience, what is the passion that's driving you to make your ideas a reality? What are you trying to accomplish at the highest level? I'll start just to give you a short way of how I'm thinking about what I do. I think with the exponential increase in technology that we're experiencing now, it really changes everything. And I believe with this Internet of Things, the networks that we build are going to be so massive that the bulk of the transactions are going to be done between machines. And the architecture that we select to enable that is going to unleash an amount of productivity that the world has never seen before. And in the end, increase in productivity is what changes people's lives. So that's what drives me, that's what makes me travel all around the world trying to get the ideas that we're trying to promote to happen. So Dominic, tell me about your passion. What keeps you working more than 8 hours a day?
Not being bored. Yes, so what really drives me is those challenges. So like I said before, this permissionless innovation is what I'm truly passionate about, because I, as an entrepreneur, I was also empowered by this permissionless innovation, where now, for the first time in human history, I was able to pay my employees without having a bank account. And I think this permissionless innovation, it needs to get more attention.
So do you have a problem with authority? Because we heard some authorities yesterday saying, well, blockchain sounds great, but it's really going to challenge my existing business model, and we think we're going to have to regulate that.
Yes, so like I said, what really drives me is challenges. And telling companies, hey, you have to cannibalize your business model to survive. That is a really interesting challenge that we can take together. So
yeah, and that's a scary thing for big companies, just so you know, but I share your opinion. Chris, you want to jump in and tell the audience what your passion is?
Right, I guess the traditional standard Silicon Valley answer would be, okay, I want to have a startup and I want to get rich quick.
An honest man.
But then this blockchain environment is kind of different, because it's hard to make money if you just give out the software for free, right? But then sort of our goal is to create this protocol layer as an open source thing, and then just build stuff on top. And the great vision behind it is that it's just a tool, right? It's fully interoperable. So everybody can use it for anything, anything related to payments or token transfers, roughly. And this way we can just go to any company and say, hey, your partner already started this with us. Join our platform, and then you create an IoT universe, right? So there's no boundaries, and that was what I experienced before, that you always have to negotiate with some people. That will not happen again.
So I'm getting a trend here. People do not want to be encumbered by a bureaucracy that has a sequential permission process. A more matrixed system may be the solution. There was a nice image of a swarm. Swarm intelligence comes to mind when I saw IOTA. And I think democratization of ideas and technology, I think, is coming through with your statements too. Junichi, would you like to add anything about how your electric vehicle system is going to provide, value to the customer?
Okay. As I mentioned first, clearly, for business point of view, okay. So we provide a body of data which created the IoT edge computer and distributed in the blockchain. I expected to have some new market. Okay, what is called sharing economy, I think, but it's emerging market, so I'm not sure. But I expected much benefit. For example, the battery owner who own the batteries, who have the data, prediction data of the battery, how long and how much will this battery is used. So, and another point of view, the battery users can use the same data. So, as opposed to change the battery owner to owner or the battery owner to users, very frequently. So we made some very fantastic market.
So the enablement of getting value from your own data is a very democratic kind of idea. I think the world is struggling with privacy and security issues around data provenance. All the examples that we've talked about today really have some core issues around how secure is the data, how authentic is the data. So Dominic, do you want to address some of those safety, security, authentication issues with IOTA?
Yeah, for sure. So my opinion, when it comes to the adoption of distributed ledgers, security applications are going to be the first ones. Because for one, the Internet of Things is probably going to be the biggest potential in human society, or the biggest threat. And the security of things is really crucial, because only if we secure those things, we can actually ensure, or we can actually allow them to be adopted. And in my opinion, distributed ledgers like IOTA really offer a key piece in the security, because for one, they provide the data authenticity, and for they provide the data integrity. And from these two components, we can derive some very interesting use cases. Like I mentioned, over-the-air updates is a very pragmatic use case that can probably adopt within the next 1 to 2 years. Do you want me to jump into some of the other use cases?
Sure.
So one of the other interesting use cases is remote control of the infrastructure. Like, how do you have a command and control center that issues a command to a machine, and the machine then safely executes this command? The thing about today is you have issues with the data transmission where it can be capped, or someone else, a malicious actor, is injecting a completely different command, and you, as the command and control center, no longer know, did the machine actually execute the command that they issued. With a distributed ledger, because you issue those commands on the distributed ledger itself, you have the data authenticity and the data integrity. And through that, this remote control of the infrastructure becomes very secure, becomes very interesting, because now you can really know that the machine validated the command that it got, and that the machine executed it.
Chris, do you want to comment on the security and authentication?
Yeah, right. And maybe from a business perspective, because that is where the hardware comes in, right? And that is where you actually can produce something, and that is where you leave the trustless environment. And I think that case is really interesting for China, because you see all of these kinds of open source hardware and really lots of factories producing leading technology, and also you, right? I guess security will be one of the biggest problems facing IoT, and I guess that makes it the biggest use case for businesses. Right?
Has anyone thought about how to measure the level of security? Because we all talk about it, but how do you measure it? How do you know your application is security level 10? That seems to be a problem. If you can't measure something, how are we ever going to be certain that we have the security level we need? Any comments on that?
No. This is
It's a hard question.
no, but this is, I just wanted to touch upon that because I think machine identities are really core to the security of the machines themselves. Because now if you have a machine identity, you know like, hey, this machine has these properties, this machine is supposed to do this and that. So if the machine behaves very differently, you can start to apply those swarm intelligence where now you can start quarantining the machine because like, hey, it's issuing like 1,000 ping requests per second, and that's not what it's supposed to do. I think that's a very interesting way to solve some of these issues. But when it comes to security framework or saying like this is good, this is bad, it's the same in blockchain. Like we don't have a framework around shaping, hey, this is secure, this is not secure. So we kind of have to apply some heuristics.
All right, so my gut feeling is this is a new area for all the entrepreneurs to focus on out there. No one knows how to measure security in a quantifiable way. For example, you have security at the hardware layer. You have security at the boot layer. You have security at the communication layer, at the identity layer. These could all be quantified in some way to make the industrial internet a much more secure, dependable, trustable fabric. These architectures that we're talking about today are going to add a lot to that, but as you can see, it's not obvious how to measure a lot of these things. And if you want to see real progress, quantitative metrics always help, at least from a big business perspective. Chris, can you add something to that?
Yeah, to security, I guess what we need is sort of the same as blockchain, and we need a sort of standard protocol for it, because right now we have all these problems like bot networks on routers, because they're so easily attackable, because it's closed databases and you can't look into it from the outside. They have standard passwords and it's old software most of the time. So what you want to have is the standard protocol, standard software, and then be able to verify that this router, even from afar, like if you're the company, is updated to the latest firmware, or otherwise it won't work, for example. And it's critical because it won't just be a router in the future, right? Basically, in the car, like the car is a computer with 4 wheels, driving hundreds of kilometers per hour. So it's getting really dangerous, and security is really important. But I think that's the way to go also, to just standardize it.
Dominic, I saw you show some passion on this.
You brought up a good point. I think the only way to really go towards this security, I think, is open source. I was recently at an event hosted by the European Commission. There was someone from VeriSign. I was like asking him, like when it comes to the security of the Internet of Things, are you willing to open source your technology? And the thing is, most of the time they just say no. The biggest problem that we have with the Internet of Things today is everyone sees the potential. Everyone says like, hey, this is going to be $1 trillion market and we can make so much money. But the thing is, when it comes to the security, you shouldn't capitalize on that. You should have a foundation layer, like you said, that is standardized, that is open source, and that is actually adopted. Because now we can really make sure that, because I kind of doubt that we can have like this plus or minus on the security of things, like this kind of framework. But if we have an open protocol, we can make sure that thousands, millions of people actually look at it. I think the most recent example is Zigbee, where Zigbee was hacked and there was found a flaw in it. And if a malicious actor had used this flaw, all of the Philips Hue lamps, everything would have been cracked. And that's a huge problem.
Yeah, so the security aspects of architecture are often not really discussed in meetings like this, but we have examples of a more distributed control structure with IOTA. Do you want to comment on the architectures that are typically seen with Ethereum-based systems?
Yeah, I guess we don't work too much with hardware manufacturers. I got an example from Germany, and you also brought it, like Energy. They're part of the second largest energy provider in Germany, and they are building a platform for charging stations for electric vehicles. And there we sort of have the web between the hardware and the software. In terms of security, we don't develop it, but they will develop it, basically.
Another feature of massive networks is robustness, and it's very different than security and efficiency and pricing. So systems that actually have a variety of systems embedded within them often are more robust. And this is seen in many areas, including the biological world. If you grow one variety of crop and you have a major problem, the entire crop is lost. So are we going to get into a problem if we standardize across everything, or do you still see that there's going to be enough variety to ensure that there's a robust aspect to the networks?
Yeah, I guess I see the problem with the monoculture, so to say, right?
Yeah.
But then if you have open protocol where the code is open to any hacker to read, then it's the biggest bug bounty basically there is, right? If you have so many millions in one software, and so many businesses invested already, that if you find a bug, you can either tell them or hack it. But there's no incentive for you to wait for it for a later point. The software itself, if the smartest guy on earth can't hack it, then it's safe.
Yeah, so that's basically how security is measured today, and that doesn't give me a real warm feeling inside. I want a metric that is not the smartest guy didn't hack into my software. So in the area of, let's say, avionics, we have validation and verification systems that can go through every line of code and make sure that there's no logical inconsistencies, et cetera. There's languages that allow you to do that. They are traditionally very difficult to work with, very expensive to code. That's why the consumer internet has not been based on that. Do you have any comments on that? Do we need to have different languages that are applied to the industrial internet environment, or are you happy with what you have?
Definitely, like similar to smart contracts, formal verification of the code is crucial when it comes to, especially like the security components. But going back to your previous question, I think that's a very interesting question. Like when it comes to that everything is dependent on a single piece of software, like what happens if all of the corporates adopt it? And I think we have to kind of abstract it. We have to have a network layer where the network is intelligent and adaptive, no longer dependent on a single software piece, but is able to secure itself through the network itself. But to be honest, I don't know how this is going to look like. We just have to experiment. We have to see how it goes. And the security of things is in the beginnings, right? Or just recently, companies realized, hey, like, our lamps can be hacked. And solving that issue, we're just getting started.
Okay, from my point of view, we introduced our business case for the Valley exchange market, B2B market. We expect the blockchain as the distributed ledger technology. This means the record-keeping functions. So I assume that the online transactions, such as settlement or the distribution of the smart key, is provided for the current major network player ASPs. Actually, we found that the payment by smartphone in China is very popular, so I think it's capable for the provide the online transaction system. So we want to provide the distributed ledger technologies.
So one of the major trends that we see around the world is the lack of desire in a lot of people to own physical objects. It's almost a trend of dematerialization. You brought it up, the sharing economy. Do you see any particular architecture that is more promising with respect to encouraging this sharing economy? And do you see any legal or regulatory issues that can stand in the way?
I mean, at the end of the day, sharing economy is dependent on the machine having its wallet, right? Being their own economic agent. Because like you said, in the future, companies don't want to have these huge assets. Company, like for example, Volkswagen wants to produce a car, the car can own itself, the car can sell itself, it figures out like where in the supply chain do I have to go, it pays a logistics company, and through that you get this complete autonomous and economic agent.
I think you just described a company with no people. So if you're worried about people being replaced by robots, this idea is even more interesting to me. So I believe it is true. I think it actually exists today, where you can start to create entities that actually require no human employees. And I think this blockchain technology and the different distributed systems that we've been discussing today and yesterday at this meeting are really the enabler of an explosion in the type of entrepreneurial activity that we're going to see over the next 5 to 10 years. Chris, with your technology, have you contemplated companies with no employees?
Actually, one of our former employees, or his former firm, was a decentralized organization, which didn't turn out so well in the end. But
no one to lay off, though, if there's no employees.
Point being, I guess, the bigger vision is, okay, you can do it, you can totally decentralize Uber or Didi, for example, but then it's hard because you have to base your entity somewhere and you have to do business in some country, right? So our approach also is, okay, speak with the German regulators, speak with the European regulators and try to find a common point and try to work together. And I guess that's for the whole blockchain environment, that's a bigger goal, not to sort of go for a revolution, but more for evolution, to work together with businesses and with governments, regulators.
So Junichi's, battery-powered car, one of the key cost structures in automobiles, they have beautiful Carmen down at the end of this menu, is the battery. The battery is a key cost component of that. Any way that you can make the price of that battery amortized in a different fashion is going to make vehicles and batteries much more easy to promote. So I think these business models where you can imagine different individuals coming together to establish a people-less entity that would then make the asset available and automatically transact is really an exciting idea. And I think these technologies you mentioned really have the possibility of doing that. Scalability has also come up. In fact, that was one of the points that was made yesterday, and that some of these technologies are starting to run up against the limit of scalability. So you addressed that a little bit, Dominic. Do you want to go a little further? Let's say I put 100 million objects in your IOTA network. Am I going to have a problem with that?
Today, yes. So the thing is...
Well, you got to get busy.
Right, yeah, but the thing is, every distributed ledger that we have out there today is a proof of concept. Nothing is running in production because no business application is running in production on there yet. So we still have some very hard technological problems to solve until we get to this production readiness. And so when it comes to the Internet of Things, like I mentioned before, it's no longer about machines sending $10, $100. It's about micropayments. Like, how do you enable those 100 billion machines to actually transact with each other on sub-cent basis? And it's a very difficult problem, but we are on this quest to solve that. Yeah.
So back to that transaction cost and how it limits markets. I'll reveal somewhat how old I am. When I first traveled overseas, to make a phone call back to my parents in America, it would typically cost many dollars per minute to send just a phone call. So that was an enormous amount of money to me when I was a student. So rather than actually connect the call, we would just have signals. If everything is okay, I'll let the phone ring 3 times and I'll hang up. So when the monopoly on telecom was ended in the US, we saw an explosion in innovation, both in the landline market as well as the cellular networks. So I think we're at that basis now where we have some regulated spaces that have served the community and the customers well. We talked about banking yesterday, finance. We heard some amazing stories about stock transactions yesterday. from the CEO of Overstock.com. I think these technologies really are going to be disruptive. Do you consider which businesses you think you're going to disrupt when you go to work every day?
Do you have to answer that?
Yes, Patrick came clean. He named it. He put it right up on the screen.
Right.
Who are your best friends in that sort of way?
Right. So the main business that we are disrupting is transaction settlement. Because in the future, banks or our Visa, our MasterCards, they're no longer going to do the transaction settlement. In my opinion, we're completely cannibalizing the business, right? But the thing is, there's still opportunity for them because the way that we see is that we have this transition phase for the adoption of a blockchain or a distributed ledger-based transaction system. There's still this onboarding and this offboarding that needs to happen. There's an opportunity for MasterCard and Visa now to offer that. So they're no longer there to do the transaction settlement, but they're there to offer this exchange of fiat into crypto tokens. I think they're kind of also our main focus in that sense.
Chris, who is going to be watching you?
Yeah, I want to add to this that besides disrupting existing businesses, we're also creating a huge platform, right? So any business can build their business, like a new business model on top of it, which is awesome because never was able before. You get a totally new market, new business models. You can sell your hardware and solve many problems of humanity existing today.
So the big concern with automation and robots and digitalization, everywhere I go, is jobs are going to disappear. We have 3 entrepreneurs up here. Are you worried about the future? Are there going to be jobs for people?
Yes. So the thing is, obviously the main vision that all of us, or like most of us have, is this zero margin society, where every resource, every good is free for you to utilize. But the thing is, getting there is a very, very difficult problem, and it's a reality that people are going to lose their jobs. Because at the end of the day, the automation...
Which people are these that are going to lose their jobs? They want to know out there.
Yeah, but it's mostly not us, because we know blockchain rises, and we're going to be rich with all of those crypto tokens and ICOs.
Okay, so you're all safe. It's the people outside that are going to lose their jobs. Yes, Judy?
Okay, I'll introduce the Kaolo Lab activity. Actually, I am in charge of the Kaolo Lab. Kaolo Lab is a very, very nice place to join the customers and Kaolo staff, along with very talented people, such as application or industry leaders, to discuss the new business models. It's very fantastic. So I will introduce the many people join us, talk about the business model with us.
Fantastic. Chris, worried about jobs?
Yeah, I mean, being a studied economist, sort of, I just want to add that this technology will just create more value in general, right? So I guess it's a problem of society and governments to decide and redistribute this value to not just blockchain entrepreneurs, but also other people who may lose their jobs.
Universal basic income.
That sounded like permission to me. Do you want to address that?
So I think we probably have to talk about universal basic income then. Because in my opinion, that's the only way to truly achieve automation, not make society go insane.
All right, well, I'm going to go on the record as we close. I am not worried about the job problem because I see all of you out there, and I know you're all going to create an enormous new world that has lots of jobs. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Xiaofang, who's sitting right in the row. This is what a leader looks like. He is here listening, learning, and creating an ecosystem that is going to create the future jobs that are going to power productivity into the future. So don't worry, get out there, work hard, and have the passion to make the new world. Thank you very much.